Well, listeners, a brand new album arrived on my desk this week that I have instantly fallen in love with. It is the brand new album from Wolfheart. It is called Draconian Darkness, and I wanted to find out a little bit more about this album. So tonight we actually thought we would get on the show one of the members of Wolfheart, Thomas, on the show. So welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you for having me.
Now, mate, you were telling me a little bit off air that this time around you really wanted to introduce Wolfheart to Australian audiences. Of course, you toured here as well. Tell us a little bit about that relationship that the band already has with Australia and Australian metal fans.
Well, for a long time, for a little bit more than 20 years, it was just a big question mark for me because it is not that easy for European and especially like Nordic band to come there. There's quite a long distance. As the biggest obstacle, so after touring a number of time in Europe and North America and doing Asia and Russia and South America, it kind of like stayed as this like uncharted territory completely. So for years we were trying to get that happen, and then there was the whole pandemic that kind of like blocked some plans. So finally, we got to do the tour this year, right after we got the new album recorded and mixed, and we already had like a clear plan that we want to do another tour with this album. We want to like do more in Australian territory in general, and luckily the new label and have very efficient promo people. So I'm doing a pleasant amount of Australian interviews, and we absolutely love the tour in there. Like the traveling is horrible. That's something I can't sugarcoat. That was the most horrible traveling I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
But the country, the shows, the people, that was beyond amazing. So this is like something we really want to make happen, to be able to tour there again with this album.
I was going to ask that. How did you find the Australian metal scene? Did you find it to be a healthy scene full of good metal fans?
It is. Like I do also see the challenges for any Australian like upcoming band, because you are pretty isolated from the rest of the world. And since most of the important touring happens either North America or Central Europe. So it sometimes even for Finnish bands that's problematic, because we live so much isolated in the north, but we have a landway still get to Europe, and the flights are just like few hours. But it is like you have awesome venues, you have awesome like local bands, and we even had like one of your guys doing bass for us, because our bass player had another tour colliding with his other band. So we had Dan Norton doing the bass. He plays in Morium, and I should remember the other band. Give me a second. This is going to be awkward if if I fail it. But anyway, like we even had like one Australian guy, so we are partly kind of like Australian band.
Definitely.
In my perspective. So I'm not sure would he be Deprivation and Immorium. That's where Dan plays, and he did an amazing job. So. Yeah, I would say I have a first-hand experience of the local metal musicians also being top-notch musicians and people in general.
And of all the weirdest things, Immorium's actually on the same show as you're on this week as well, because they've got some new material out as well. So, weird world, a small world, but you're both on the same show this week as well.
Yeah, I saw the video. It's a really, really good song that they put out. So I really hope they will have an opportunity to come to Europe with the music also, because comparison to the European metal scene, it can compete with any of the top bands that we have in Europe at the moment.
Definitely. Now, talking of great new music, I mentioned the brand new album that you guys have been working on that is coming out. Tell us a little bit about this album. What kind of things were you guys talking about when you first started to work on this album? Were there any goals that you wanted to achieve, or what was the thought process when you first went into work on this album?
Well, there was very clear goals. We compared at least to our previous albums. We definitely wanted this album to be more darker.
Yep.
Like it comes to the composition and also the production, and we did also the pre-production a little bit more thoroughly. We started working with the keyboards and orchestrals already in the pre-production phase, so I could arrange the guitars in a way that they give some room for bigger orchestration in right places, and the other way around. So because usually we make the guitar bass and drums, and then we just put the keys where it fits or where there's room, because we have very low tuning with the guitars. They steal a lot of frequencies from like a big orchestral stuff. But this time we wanted to make sure that there's more room for the orchestral stuff, so we can create more like cinematic soundscape than just metal band that has some symphonic elements there like on top.
Yep. Was there a reason why you wanted this album to be darker? Was it something that you'd been talking about for a long time, or what was that thought process on wanting to make this album darker?
I guess it was like the previous album, King of the North, that is easily our most like mid-tempo and the most melodic like album. And I think like that album, like we still love the album. We wouldn't change anything of that album if we could go back, and we still play several songs live. But I think we bottled up some aggression while making that album, because we didn't put all the heavier stuff on that album in a way that we have done in the previous albums. So I think like we got all that melodic and mid-tempo out of our system, and there was only this like more aggressive stuff needing to come out. So I think we wanted to make like a clear contrast on the previous album, and it is a lot more fun to play live. Like the heavier, faster, aggressive, and kind of like bigger songs when it comes to like guitar riffs and stuff like that. Those are the most fun to play live also.
So how did that change your songwriting process for this album? Did you look at different themes that you wanted to touch on with the songs? Like how did making the album darker, how did that go when you started to work on the songwriting process?
It was a lot more natural. I think I didn't struggle with the previous album, but I definitely had to like have a different focus to keep the album more melodic. Like there was more like guidelines in my head when writing the previous album, so it wouldn't get too heavy. But on this album, I just took the handbrake off, and I was able to fight more freely, and like I didn't need to sit down and decide like today heavier riffs need to come out because the album needs to be darker. But it was more natural to me also write like darker stuff in general.
Yeah. So what kind of things were inspiring you when it came to theme? Was it the world around you? Was it mythology? What kind of things were actually inspiring you when you sat down to work on these tracks?
It's very interesting that you pointed out those two terms, because there's that is basically the connection and the theme and everything, because the previous album was about Finnish mythology. The whole album was basically about different stories from the time where people lived in a perfect harmony with the nature. We only killed what we needed. We were praying for the rain and the sun to give a good crops and harvest. We were worshipping bears and other like apex predators of the woods. Like it was very healthy and good, like a balance with the nature. And this new album is about this modern world and the world around us that is just basically we are killing and burning everything around us, and we completely lost the balance and the respect, and also we don't fear the nature anymore because we are now king of the world, so to speak. So that's where the album name comes also, and there's a connection with the cover art from between the previous and this one. In the previous one, there was a bear skull in the front. It was like a totem for the bear as a god of the forest. And on the new album is a human skull, because this is just a very slow and shitty funeral that we are actually celebrating as a mankind, in my opinion. Like I can be wrong, and I hope that I am. But it's like, if you look at the pattern, where we've been like leading the world in the past 200 years, and then how the future looks like, it looks pretty dark and bleak.
Yeah. I get to work with endangered animals a lot with my work, and I also get to work on educating people about what we're doing to this planet as well with that work. It sounds like you've got quite a strong connection to nature as well. Tell us a little bit about your connection with nature, and how important is nature to you?
Well, I've been working as a gardener and landscaper for almost 27 years. Like, this is the second year I'm just like a full-time musician. But I've been planting so many forests. I've been building so many yards. Like, there's thousands of square meters in Finland green because of me. So, and I've seen like, since I started that when I was 15, I still see the places where I planted the forest like 20 years ago. And now it's like a full-grown forest, and you could actually take it down and have firewood and stuff like that. So I understand how fragile the nature is and how long it takes to recover. And also, I spend as much time as I can going outdoors and fishing, especially like summertime, and also the ice fishing in winter. So yeah, nature has like a huge role in my life, and I'm more sad about the nature than the people, basically. Yeah. To see what happens in the world, because it's our fault. Not everybody, of course, but in general, we brought this darkness upon the world. It didn't, like, nature didn't do it, the animals didn't do it, the plants didn't do it. So they are just basically the victims of our greedy behavior.
Yeah. I read somewhere that the single Evenfall, you said that you felt that was the track that kind of linked the older albums to the newer albums. Was it important for you to have a track that did do that, to link the older albums with this new album?
Well, not really. Like, it was more about that was the least symphonic song. And on the first two albums, our keys were very like moderate and simple. I wouldn't call any of that like orchestral stuff. Some individual strings here and there. So like that's the connection. That's how it sounds as a song that could be on either first or the second album. But it's not like I felt that I need to link the music from the beginning, like to this day. But then again, we still play on the tours. We still play at least one or two songs from the debut album. So we keep the link alive to the old music anyway. Yeah. But it wasn't the purpose of that song.
You said earlier that there felt like there was an aggression that needed to let out with this album. How did that feel when you actually headed into the studio and had that opportunity to let that aggression out? Did it kind of feel cathartic in a way of letting all that out?
It was amazing. It was amazing, and it was also, the previous album was so much easier to play at the studio. Like, it was just like a walk in the park with those tempos and riffs. Now it was a lot more demanding to the rehearsals and then do at the studio. But it was great to get that out, because like Yngwie Malmsteen, our neighbor country guitar legend, wisely said, more is more. Yeah. So of course, it was great to be able to like put all the limits aside and do as dark and heavy as we like physically could.
Awesome. Now, I know we are running out of time very, very quickly, so I wanted to ask, is there any chance that you'll be heading back to Australia to tour off the back of this album sometime soon, or do you think we might have to wait a little bit longer?
It's going to happen, hopefully, somewhere next year. Like, we have, this year is already full book. We do a tour in Finland and we do a tour in Europe. And beginning of next year, we kind of have to get North America done. So then, like next spring, summer, fall, early winter, that is still a little bit open in the calendar. So I would hope it would happen during the Finnish winter, because that last time we did it, it was like perfect timing. The shittiest time weather-wise in Finland, and I get to be in Australia. So something like that would be awesome, yeah.
Awesome. Well, to finish off, we do have to wait a little while longer for the album to come out for our listeners on September the 6th, but what would you like to say to people out there before they sit down and take a listen to Draconian Darkness in full when it's released in September?
Ideally, I wouldn't want to say anything. I would just want people just dig into the music itself. I always consider the songwriter being the worst person in the universe to talk about the music. I have so wrong and twisted and selfish connection for the songs and the music. It depends of the day. Is it more like self-criticism, or is it like I just hear things that are not even there, or I have like emotional connection too strong that everything is best music in the universe on that day. So just sit down and listen to the music. And go the album from beginning to the end. Nowadays, it's a lot of people just take songs here and there, and it's just playlists in Spotify and Deezer and Apple Music dominating the music. But be old school. Do the whole album. That's the only thing I want to say.